Hi, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to The Wandering Reader. Today I'm going to be doing a recommendations video. So it's February, it's the month of love, and when this video goes up, it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. So I thought I would do a romance recommendations video. Now, when it comes to romance as a genre on its own, I don't tend to read a lot of books that are just kind of straight in that genre. But I do like a bit of romance in other types of books that I read. So the ones that I'm going to talk to you about today are mainly recommendations of some good romance in other types of genres. So I've got a few books here on my pile, so let's just jump straight in. The first book that I'm going to talk about is The Time Traveller's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. I think that's how you pronounce that. I read this quite a few years ago now, but I absolutely loved it. And I would say that out of all of the ones that I've got on my pile, this is a bit more just straight romance. So this tells the story of Claire and Henry, and Claire meets Henry when Henry's 36 and Claire is 6. Yeah, that's correct. And it's about how Henry is a time traveller, so he has this condition where he time travels, so his body gets transported into the future and it gets transported into the past. So he meets Claire in the future, I think, and then they meet again and again over a number of years, and they eventually get married. The romance in here is really, really sweet. It's quite intense and passionate at times, just because of his condition and how he kind of slips in and out of Claire's life. When he is there, their relationship is really intense. And it's quite sad at times as well, but it's such a compelling romance, it's such a compelling read. I really enjoyed it when I read it, so that would be one to pick up. Next I have one that I read really recently, and that is Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion. If you want a romance that's not your typical type of romance, then this may be one to pick up, and it's quite short as well, quite easy to get through. So this is a romance between R and Julie, and R is a zombie, but he's not your typical zombie. He is awakening to being a normal human, or a semi-normal human, and it's semi about his relationship with Julie and his need to protect her and his need to look after her. And yeah, it was really nice to see those kind of intrinsic protective qualities about relationships within this one. They just make a really nice couple. So I'd really recommend that. Next I want to talk to you about one of my favourite books of last year, and that was Out of the Easy by Ruth Sepetys. When it comes to the romance in here, this is a story that focuses around a girl called Josie, and she lives in New Orleans, and her mother's a prostitute, and she's trying to get herself out of that sort of lifestyle and into something, you know, into college. She wants to go to college. But along the way in this story, she is friends with a guy called Jesse, and it's clear to the reader that Jessie really does quite fancy her. She's a little bit oblivious to it, and doesn't realise the caring person that he is, and the potential that he has to be her boyfriend. And there were some really sweet scenes in here between him and her, where you're just rooting for him and you're kind of shouting at her as if to say, you know, wake up. This is he's a lovely guy, and obviously won't reveal what happens between the two of them because you really must read the book. But yeah, it is a really sweet little relationship that I really liked in here. Next up is Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. Now this is the second book in the Throne of Glass series, and you might think it a little bit strange that I'm holding up the second book, but the second book is where we get one of the relationships that I really like in this series. So we get the relationship between Shoal and Selena, and I really loved their relationship. It was just so passionate, it was so loving. I just loved them together. I think Shoal is a really underrated character. He's such a gentleman, and I was devastated when it didn't work out between the two of them. So if you haven't picked up this series yet, it's just such a good fantasy series in general, but I love the writing. Shoal and Selena together, amazing. Next I have Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. I read this right at the beginning, I think, of 2016, or right at the end of 2015, something like that, and I absolutely loved it. I think this is probably what you would class as straight up YA romance. But this tells the story of Anna, who is sent by her parents to go to school in France for a year, and when she's not very happy about the decision, but when she's there she meets a guy called Etienne. My French pronunciation is not that great, but we'll go with Etienne, I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's about how, you know, the two of them and how their relationship develops, and how her year in France develops and things like that, and how the time that she has, and it was just really sweet. It was so good. It was a real page turner. I don't own copies of the other two yet, but I'm really interested in picking them up and continuing on with some of the other characters in this world. And I love the fact that it's got the backdrop of Paris, you know, city of love, and you know, it's just great, just brilliant straight up romance. So next up I have a series. This is the Selection series by Kira Cass, and this is set in a dystopian world where there are casts. There are 8 casts, I think they're called, and there's this almost like a competition where some girls are selected from different casts to date the prince, and he gets to choose a wife from these women that come to be a part of this competition, as it were. You would think I wouldn't like these, maybe because they would be a bit too, I don't know, girly, maybe a bit too childish, but they're just great. They're just great reads. And the relationship between America, who's one of the girls in the selection and whose perspective the story is told from, and Prince Maxon is lovely. I'm really rooting for them, and like I said, I haven't read the one yet, which is the 3rd book in the series, but I'm really looking forward to picking that up. And these are just some great romance novels, yeah, to pick up if you're in the mood for a little bit of love. And next up I have a bit of a different relationship, but one that I really enjoyed reading about nonetheless, and if you haven't picked this book up yet, then you really should give it a go. And that's the relationship between Don and Rosey in the Rosey Project by Graham Simpson. I read this a couple of years ago, and it reminded me that the main character Don in here reminded me so much of Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. I absolutely love The Big Bang Theory. I think it's utterly hilarious. And Sheldon is such a great character, and Don reminded me so much of him. He looks at life in a way that's very different from lots of people, and his approach to relationships is very different. So this was a good one for that reason, you know, looking at love through somebody else's eyes, looking at love through a person's eyes who you know, doesn't necessarily think about relationships and the lovers in love in the same way that you do. I do have the sequel, which is called The Rosey Effect, but I haven't read it yet. My husband has, and he said he didn't like it as much as The Rosey Project. But The Rosey Project definitely is a good one to pick up, something a bit different, and something I think that you'll really enjoy. So they were all my romance recommendations that I have for you today. Have you got any romance recommendations for me? I'd love to hear. Leave them in the comments and we can have a little chat about what we think. Thanks very much for watching. Happy Valentine's Day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.